Coming up today, the governor of Korea's Gyeongsangnam-do Province, Hong Joon-pyo, appears before prosecutors over allegations he took more than $90,000 in kickbacks from a recently deceased businessman. In Japan's latest move to glorify its wartime past, a prefecture in the south of the country reignites its bid to get letters written by kamikaze pilots inscribed on a well-respected UNESCO history list. Plus, the vote count goes on in Britain, but exit polls suggest the ruling Conservative Party will be the largest party, but there's uncertainty over whether they'll win enough seats for an overall majority. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Friday, the 8th of May. You're tuned into our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks, as always, for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. First up, the latest on the Songwan-jong graft scandal, and prosecutors are questioning Hong Joon-pyo, governor of Gyeongsangnam-do Province, on this Friday. Hong, a former prosecutor himself, is the first of 8 political heavyweights listed on Song's suicide note to be summoned. The investigators have already grilled Yoon Sung-mo, who is the former vice president of Song's firm, Gyeongnam Enterprises. Now, Yoon claims he personally delivered more than $90,000 to Hong in 2011 when he was running for chairman of the Grand National Party, the predecessor of the ruling Saenuri Party. Prosecutors believe Hong tried to destroy evidence, and the interrogation is expected to last all day. Former Prime Minister Lee Wang-gu, who was also named on Song's note, resigned over the allegations and may face questioning next. Now, Japan is continuing to stir tensions with its neighbours by making efforts to glorify its history of wartime aggression. This time, a local government in Kagoshima Prefecture is pushing to have letters written by World War II suicide pilots inscribed on the UNESCO Memory of World Register. Our Son Jong-in has more.
This is the Chiram Peace Museum located in the southern city of Minami-Kyushu in Kagoshima Prefecture, where the Imperial Japanese Army's Special Attack Units had their staging base at the end of World War II. The museum is dedicated to its suicide pilots known as kamikaze, who deliberately crashed their planes into Allied warships in the Pacific. In the exhibition hall, photos of the pilots, their farewell letters, and other related items are on display. It describes the pilots as heroes to glorify their actions during the war. Last year, the museum sparked international controversy when it submitted a proposal seeking recognition of the kamikaze pilots' last letters to UNESCO's World Memory List. Their petition was turned down due to lack of evidence the documents uphold world peace. The local government is once again pushing ahead with the move to have their collections enlisted on the register, claiming they serve as important war-related evidence that needs to be preserved.
We decided to apply for the inscription as the collection is a valuable heritage for humankind.
The move comes as Japan is stepping up its campaign to ensure wartime facilities housing enslaved laborers during World War II are added to the UNESCO World Heritage List. This has provoked outrage among Japan's neighbors who are so terribly affected by the country's wartime atrocities. Son Jong-in, Arirang News.
Now, fresh tension is brewing as Japan is seeking to list wartime industrial facilities where tens of thousands of Koreans were forced to labor as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Hwang Sang-yi sat down with Michael Green, who is Japan Chair for the Center of Strategic and International Studies, who is in Seoul for the Jungang Ilbo CSIS Forum, and she started by asking his views on Tokyo's controversial bid.
No historical site is pure. I mean, there's always some negative aspect to human history. And I think it would be better for the Japanese side to explain the important significance of these sites in terms of development and, frankly, a development model that much of the rest of Asia copied, while at the same time acknowledging that there was human suffering involved as well.
In a recent interview, you assessed Abe's recent comments positively. Can you elaborate on that?
By acknowledging that Japan, that these women were trafficked, from a U.S. perspective, this is a strong or stronger addressing of the fact that the Japanese people and the Japanese government have some accountability. From an American's perspective, in the country where this word trafficking was developed as a matter of international law, what the Prime Minister said is a step forward. It's not a huge step forward, but it's considered a step forward.
So you don't think that Prime Minister Abe has to necessarily say that the Japanese government was responsible for this human trafficking when he uses the word trafficking?
No, I don't think that the Japanese government's official stance on the comfort women issue is adequate. However, I think there's a view in the U.S., and I certainly have the view, that it is moved in a better direction. Although I should quickly add that on this question of comfort women, Japan has no support in terms of the history. 190 historians in the U.S. signed a letter describing what they thought happened. And I think that's the mainstream view among scholars and experts.
Considering that Abe also needs to satisfy his conservative domestic supporters, do you think it's possible, how likely is it for Korea and Japan to resolve this historical dispute while Abe is in power?
An apology seems very political, and I think a hard target to achieve under the current Japan-Korea relationship. But I think there is room in the next statements in the upcoming anniversaries to get more. And that will require not freezing high-level dialogue until there's a resolution. And since President Park and Prime Minister Abe are not talking directly, there has to be someone very close to each of them who's brave, politically strong, who works on this issue bilaterally.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Dr. Green.
Thank you.
Now it's halfway through a busy night of vote counting in Britain after Thursday's general election. Exit polls show the Conservative Party, led by Prime Minister David Cameron, are well on course to win the most seats in Parliament, 316, but that would still leave them 10 short of an overall majority. The main opposition Labour Party, forecast to win 239 seats, have been having a rough night already, losing multiple seats in Scotland to the Scottish National Party, who are on course to win a staggering 57 of the 58 seats up for grabs in Scotland. Most striking so far in Scotland is that the Scottish Labour leader, Jim Murphy, lost his seat to a 20-year-old SNP candidate. Britain's de facto third party, the Liberal Democrats, are having a nightmare night that could see them losing 47 seats in Parliament, potentially leaving them with fewer than 10 seats. Results from across Britain are filtering through as we speak, but the final result is expected by Friday lunchtime UK time, which will be late Friday evening here in Korea. A federal appeals court in the United States has ruled that the National Security Agency program that collects Americans' phone data is illegal. The case was brought over revelations made by the former NSA contractor Edward Snowden. In their ruling on Thursday, the three judges said the NSA's use of phone records exceeds the scope of what Congress has authorized under the Patriot Act. The judges noted that the Patriot Act does not authorize the NSA to systematically and routinely gather and store the phone records of Americans not suspected of activity deemed to be a threat to national security. The court said Congress must now decide whether the once secret surveillance program should continue. South Korea and China are pressing North Korea to immediately halt its nuclear activities and return to the six-party denuclearization talks with a sincere attitude. Seoul's top nuclear envoy, Hwang Jung-guk, made the statement during a press conference on Thursday, following talks with his Chinese counterpart Wu Da-wei in Beijing. As initial steps towards denuclearization, Hwang said the North should suspend its nuclear activities and let international inspectors monitor its main nuclear complex. Describing the situation on the Korean peninsula as fluid, He stressed that it was a crucial time for the other 6 party members, South Korea, the US, China, Japan and Russia, to promote holding exploratory talks with the North. Now, in some news just in, really, North Korea has threatened to attack South Korean warships without warning if they continue to cross over the Western Sea border, claiming that South Korean Navy speedboats created military provocations several times this month. The North issued what's called an emergency special warning on Friday. Now, South Korea was quick to respond. A spokesman for the Defense Ministry in Seoul said it's actually the North who's creating tensions in the West Sea, adding that if Pyongyang attacks, the South will make sure the North, quote, bitterly regrets its actions. North Korea does not acknowledge the de facto maritime border known as the Northern Limit Line, which was drawn up in 1953 at the end of the Korean War. And over 60 years have passed since the Korean War armistice, but thousands of American soldiers who died during the conflict are still missing. Searching and digging for their remains goes on to this day, but progress has been slow. Our Connie Kim filed this report from the most recent excavation site on the south coast of the Korean Peninsula.
Death Valley. Busan earned that name when many U.S. soldiers died here shortly after the Korean War began. They successfully repelled North Korean forces attempting to push towards the port city of Busan, but the remains of a number of the fallen never made it back to the States. With recent civilian reports that up to 6 American soldiers may have been buried in this nearby mountain, experts from South Korea and the U.S. have teamed up for a 3-day investigation. It took hours of searching and shoveling to expose just one human skeleton. At this point, the team can't determine whether it's Korean or American.
The body was buried 1.5 meters deep. Because the soil is moist, the remains weren't preserved well. We plan to be extra careful when transporting it to our central identification laboratory.
If the lab can verify that this skeleton came from America, it'll be repatriated to the U.S. Some 36,000 U.S. soldiers are known to have died during the Korean War. Close to 8,000 are still unaccounted for. Since 2001, only 7 American bodies have been ID'd with help from the South Korean military.
At the rate that we're going, it doesn't seem like we're making progress very quickly. This is a great challenge. It requires a lot of perseverance. It requires investigative skill. It requires scientific capability.
It'll also require time, lots of time. For now, experts from South Korea and the U.S. will continue the search, attempting to ensure that the war dead can rest in peace on home soil. Connie Kim, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, Google's first Asia campus to support startups opened in Seoul earlier today. Google's latest establishment is expected to bolster the capabilities of local startups to expand their business overseas and attract foreign investors to Korea. It's the third of its kind after campuses in London and Tel Aviv, and Campus Seoul will house 8 startups and offer one-on-one mentoring to would-be entrepreneurs. There will be exchange programs with the other global startup hubs and workshops to share know-how in management and marketing. Customized startup training will also be available for mothers seeking ventures. President Park Geun-hye, whose meeting with Google CEO Larry Page 2 years ago, led to the Seoul campus opening, and she vowed to develop Korea into a dynamic global startup hub. The market for solar panels is powering up as demand for clean energy systems increases. Market researcher IHS says gross profits from photovoltaic or PV modules, and that's how panels convert sunshine into usable energy, will top $5 billion this year, more than doubling from a year earlier. The firm's latest report identified at least 89 countries where solar installations are expected to grow in 2015. Now, this is good news for Hanwha, a Korean leader in PV modules, as well as other related companies such as Samsung SDI, which makes solar energy storage systems. IHS predicts that the global solar market will rise to 61 gigawatts this year, up nearly 30% from last year. To put that into some context, 1 gigawatt of solar power can power up to 750,000 homes. Media producers and providers from all over the world, including Arirang TV, the station you're watching right now, are in Korea's southern port city of Busan for Asia's largest broadcasting content mixer. Our Kim Ji-yeon was there and filed this report.
The 9th annual International Busan Contents Market opened on Thursday, attracting media makers and buyers from across the globe. Industry experts consider the event to be a golden networking opportunity and a venue for discovering and sharing content, ranging from TV dramas and documentaries to animation. 1,500 buyers and sellers are to participate in the 3-day event that's also welcoming some 500 firms from 47 countries. And of course, Korea's one and only English broadcasting station for international viewers, Arirang TV, participated in the event, releasing its new program guide for the year.
What are the latest trends in broadcasting content for this year, and can you introduce some of the shows that Arirang is introducing this year?
I see more studio shows than outdoor shows. And this year, Arirang TV is pitching 2 new studio shows, which are Bring It On and Shooters. And Bring It On is an interactive survival show, and it's real time. And so people can vote for the presenters and they choose the winners. So it's a new trend and it's our new format. And Shooters is a debate show.
The Korean Culture Ministry's Cultural Contents Fund session, held on Friday, is one of the most anticipated programs of the expo, which runs through Saturday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News, Busan.
Well, that's all we have for now. Have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.